Thank you for joining us. We do this every year. We have our sort of trying to find a way to show all the work that we've done, or at least highlights at the River Institute, our love and our passion for the river. So my name is Stephanie Hildebrand. I take care of a lot of the visual communications. So majority of the photography and the graphic design I take care of. And sorry, there's a lot of yeah, so the annual report is this big task that I have every year, and it takes a lot of collaboration and coordination within our team to bring all of that work and to basically celebrate and reflect on what we've done in the last 12 months. I couldn't have done this without Elsie Lewison, who's sitting right here, who did a lot of the writing and is an incredible editor, as well as Lexi Harkwell for some of her written content for the annual report. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but yeah. Oh yeah, here, one here. So for today is just kind of a presentation where we pulled out a few of the highlights, but I highly recommend that you take a look at the full PDF and the full annual report as you'll really get in-depth insight and all the work that we do. And it's a really fun task to bring together, so I would love for you guys to take a look at it. We do have this QR code that will bring you to our webpage, and then you can download the PDF from there. And there's the link as well, just in case the QR code doesn't work when you photograph it. Yeah. Without further ado, I will pass it on to Jeff Reidel, our Executive Director.
Thanks, Steph. Steph we had the Great Lakes Conference last week, and Steph actually took on as a freelance photographing for the Great Lakes Conference, and I think is now getting pretty famous. Likes to be everywhere. I guess she got to be in every single, let me see if I get this on my lapel, okay. And get into every single session, and was also famous for being in the middle of the dance circle, I think that started at the end of the Thursday evening. So she's definitely getting quite a reputation for all her photography. So let me just try, that goes forward. Okay. So it's a pleasure to be able to kick off our annual presentation, and nice to have such a diverse audience today to participate and to hear about the actions and the activities and the progress of the Institute over the past 2022. So I actually do have notes. That might be helpful. So in terms of the ED report, which is kind of always in every annual report, to just sort of summarize on behalf of the staff everything that's gone on. The three themes that kind of came out of that letter were growth, inspiration, and dedication. Growth, because as you heard earlier today from our auditor and everything, we actually did see some real growth this past year. We welcomed 14 new scientists, educators, and administrative personnel in 2022. We brought on some really critical people that I think not only help us deliver the science and the outreach and the education that we like to do, but also form some of the base of that back, the back room sort of thing, the people that help make sure everything moves along effectively and efficiently. So we did bring on some really great people, and I'm really proud of that. So we ended up with over 40 staff, both part-time and full-time, and we do grow quite a bit over the summer months. We love taking on, obviously, the summer student teams and educators, and to help us with our education programs that are really busy, and our obviously our field programs and that sort of brings us about 40. That's a pretty big number for us. And it really, speaks to our growth and I think the contribution. We really like that opportunity working with young people to help create those future environmental leaders. And dedication is really just those people, right? Dedication is fortunate to have such dedicated and talented people on our team. And basically this presentation is our opportunity to share with you all of the hard work and those contributions that people have made. and their incredible work over the past year. And inspiration, the word inspiration kind of came out, bubbled up over 2022. We actually have been doing a theme with our annual reports, year of this, year of that. And so we were kind of going around in a circle, and what's the right word? And we were going to say year of growth, but then the word inspiration came up, and it really has a lot. You'll hear this word inspiration a couple times throughout this presentation. And really it does hearken to our mission, our vision, which is to inspire and guide communities towards healthy and sustainable river ecosystems. So that's our objective. And I guess really, hopefully we're going to convince you that we've been managing to succeed in helping that vision come forward. Okay.
Just pointed at the computer.
Oh,
Should
then
work.
wrong. Do you want to just move it for me? I don't know why.
Try it again. Oh,
There we
I
go.
think it worked there. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. So I'd like to just take a moment to also recognize, of course, the board of directors that you had, and and as representative also of all of our volunteers that work on behalf of the Institute. A board of directors, they're volunteers, they're not getting paid, they're volunteering their time, as most nonprofits, organizations, and how critical this board of directors, any board of directors, is to the overall organization, the governance, to ensure that we maintain, direction and focus. And one of the key, kind of components of that governance is a strategic plan or some sort of document that basically says, here's what we're going to be doing over the next number of years. And that's sort of like an understanding between the staff and the board about what's mutually agreed upon. And we developed a strategic plan in 2021. It was kind of started in 2020. It takes a while. And then it completed in 2021. And then, so 2022 was our very first year to really have, the full operating under the strategic plan. And we were able to initiate some really key initiatives this past year with the guidance of the board and all of our committees that are associated with the board, which actually expands our list of people that we work with. We have a wide variety of committees that we're able to then draw in other community members as well, and helping us with that. And you'll see some of these people highlighted over this presentation. So it's really the governance pillar is to work collaboratively to guide the organization to a sustainable future. So that's the wording under our strat plan. There's a number of things that I'll just point out that we've worked on, and one of the key things was development of a theory of change framework. Theory of change has become an increasingly popular approach to describe and illustrate how the organization is strategically creating change. And one of the things is really part of that in terms of sustainability, not only say, how are we going to make these things happen, but also it help frame up a compelling proposition for what every nonprofit needs, which is sponsors and donors. And also help position us to broaden our funding base to perhaps international donors and sponsors because mostly, it's local donors and sponsors, people that within our networks, and really as the Institute and all organizations, to be able to access those donors and sponsors internationally would really make a big difference in terms of our sustainability. And part of that framework is called a log frame, or a logical framework, to demonstrate the progress and the impacts. And one of those you'll see is the way you demonstrate those impacts is start collecting metrics and indicators. And you'll see these indicators and metrics as we start collecting them through each of these parts of the presentation. What we're going to do then in this presentation is just sort of a little bit of an outline. We're going to go over some of our research programs. We're going to ask different members of the Institute to come forward and tell you about some of these key things about informing conservation action, about our education programs and community through outreach and sharing ways of knowing. And then there'll be some more details about our financials, and then sum it up in terms of the team. So that's the talk outline. And I would like to just maybe also point out that one of the things that we've done this year in terms of actually one of those governance things in terms of succession planning as well is by recognizing formally some of the leadership and leaders that have been developing over time and creating under our leadership pillar to formalize the roles of Dr. Lee Magahi as our research and community engagement leader, and Matt Windle as our program lead for research and technical services. So they'll speak to the research components, and basically, with our research, what we're trying to do is to, as a key objective, is to increase our impact in terms of environmental conservation and actions, and inform environmental decision making. And part of the strategies is partly to continue to do what we do well, build on our core research programs and develop those initiatives, and to ensure that we kind of reach out and connect with other organizations, other groups, other research centers that are doing similar things. And then to also initiate some new areas of work. So, for example, in priority areas like research into climate change adaptation and ecosystem resiliency. So I'll pass it on to Matt Windle to provide you with further details about that kind of work. Matt?
Can you hear me okay? Okay. Thank you, Jeff, for that introduction, and really happy to share with everybody a lot of the great work we've been doing and the impacts it's been having throughout the community and wider. And just want to start by, setting the scene that the river has this legacy of hundreds of years of human impacts, and the rate of change is accelerating the last few decades. So there's a need to conduct a lot of research and to undertake actions to address this. And parts of the ecosystem have responded in different ways. We have, over different time periods, we have species that are doing very well still. We have some species that are new species in the area, and we have others that are struggling. And one of the great strengths of the River Institute is our ability to collect and disseminate science to the community. So collect information and disseminate that to inform policy and to address community concerns as well. And we're really helping to address a lot of critical knowledge gaps about species at risk. There we go. Species at risk and invasive species in the St. Lawrence River. And this is through a lot of work that we're doing in partnership with various agencies and groups. And an example of this is the efforts of the FINS project. FINS stands for Fish Identification Nearshore Survey. It's an acronym that floats off the tongue a little bit better as FINS. But this was initiated 8 years ago, and it's a partnership with the Environment Program at the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne. We created this project together, and it's created this great opportunity to collect information and map biodiversity and species at risk in the St. Lawrence River. It's created one of the largest data sets now on the St. Lawrence River, a very unique one, and it's creating a lot of really important collaborative opportunities as well. And we have the benefit of having Steph Hildebrand out with us a lot, and this was a really neat thing that happened where Canadian Geographic was doing an article on invasive species in the St. Lawrence River, and they used photographs of Steph's, some of the photographs of Steph out with the FINS team as part of that article to highlight some of the invasive species work that we were doing at the River Institute. So we just wanted to highlight that. That was a really neat thing that happened in 2022. We're excited to be using new types of data collection tools at the River Institute, and we're just highlighting a few of them here. You can see a drone in the upper photo there, and then you see Megan Mitchell from the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne doing some environmental DNA sampling as well in the lower photo there. So these are new tools that we're using to collect more information we didn't have possible in previous years. And this is giving us new insights into the health and state of the ecosystem. We have other tools that we're using too. They're not highlighted here. Acoustics. Dr. Brian Hickey's using some really cool tools to listen in on bat conversations. So lots of different new technologies that have, we're really, as the Institute grows, we're really incorporating a newer, broader tool belt there. Here's a map showing just the geographic scope. And again, we're highlighting one project, but lots of other projects cover large geographic scopes. This is from our FINS project. So you see a map here of Lake Ontario and then St. Lawrence River extending eastward there. And all those points are sampling points that we've done over the last 8 years. There's over 200. But just to convey that, we're having this impact on gathering lots of information about the aquatic ecosystems, and we're filling in these critical knowledge gaps about the state of the ecosystem that are not being covered by other organizations. This also includes efforts for temperature loggers throughout the river. There's over 20 of them deployed throughout the river and in tributaries. And we have, as you'll hear upcoming as well, the analysis of huge environmental data sets that are being done as part of the river report that cover this length of the river as well. One of the fundamental partnerships and relationships we have at the River Institute is with the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne. And that's just, you heard Abe mention a few of the ways in which we work together. Since the founding of the River Institute, you can see lots of activities in 2022 were ongoing in partnership with the MCA, ranging from education events, collection of environmental data. You can see a large team in the top right photo there, identifying fish, for example. We have Norm Peters in the lower left there, I believe, or that might be Travis. But anyway, lots of different projects in the Go in 22 that really benefit from that partnership. And it's helping build capacity at both of our organizations. We're learning from each other. We're gaining these skills. Lots of young professionals are coming in through these programs and developing skill sets and networking as well. And that's leading some great successes. One of the unique things about the River Institute is our ability to leverage research partnerships. And in 2022, we had collaborative partnerships with 10 universities, 30 nonprofits, and 12 public offices and agencies. And that also includes Indigenous and non-Indigenous. So really impressive collaborative effort as part of the River Institute. And this ranges from local to regional in scale. We bring equity and unique opportunities, for example, training opportunities for careers in environmental science. And we're also working with, so an example that's highlighted here is this relationship we have with Queen's University and the lab of Dr. Stephen Lougheed there and some of his graduate students. And Steve specializes in environmental DNA research as one of his expertise level specialties. And we benefited from this collaborative work by learning a lot from their lab, having some of their grad students come out, teach us how to collect water samples, for example, and do environmental DNA. So this is expanding our capacity greatly to do this type of work. So in this photo, you see Stafford Miracle holding a fish viewer there, and we have Bojan Chen, who's a postdoc with Queen's, and then our own River Institute scientist, Courtney Holden. So everyone coming together in various projects is a really common theme at the River Institute. We generally don't do things by ourselves. And there's also just an incredible network I want to mention of research collaborations happening with the River Rapport team to inform ecosystem health in the St. Lawrence River, and you're going to learn more about that later in this presentation. Jeff mentioned this is, we're in the state of climate change now. We need to learn how to adapt to that, what is changing, and how we can help with that. And the River Institute is dedicated to studying some of these large-scale patterns that are impacting the St. Lawrence River ecosystem and other large river systems as well. And we have many projects that are helping to track climate change impacts. We just want to highlight a few examples here on this slide. On the left there, you see Dr. Courtney Holden there, and she's reading data off of one of over 20 temperature loggers that she distributed throughout the St. Lawrence River, just in near-shore shallow zones. And these record temperature continuously throughout the season. So you can see the fluctuations that happen in relation to water temperatures and air temperatures. And this is really valuable because this helps us model the fish habitat that's available. And it has really great value for a lot of our other research partners. And the other project we want to highlight as well is on the right there, you see some staff, you might recognize one of them, collecting data in the winter time. So this was a unique opportunity for River Institute staff to go out and conduct some winter field work, which is a little rare for us. We usually out in the summer. But this was to do with collecting elevations in coastal wetlands of the St. Lawrence River to help inform water level modeling that was being conducted by Environment Canada to help inform IJC decision making. So IJC is an International Joint Commission that's in charge of international waterways. So that's, I highly recommend doing winter field work in a wetland if you want a really good leg workout. That is really fun to do. We have so much to brag about, and there's so many inspiring people at the River Institute. There's a photo of some of them here. The River Institute provides really unique experiential opportunities for, that's good to know, opportunities for future environmental leaders, and you see some of them here. So young professionals, you get your degree from a college or university, great. A lot of people have struggled to find relevant experience or jobs right out of school. So the River Institute offers this great opportunity for a lot of these people, recent graduates, to come in and gain these practical skill sets, to train with mentors, and to gain contacts in industry because of the networking that we have at the River Institute. And so I'm just really proud of, that's one of the proud things I know we all have at the Institute. And of course, we see people develop into project leaders through this as well. As people gain more experience, they become leaders of projects, which is really cool to see. So some of the next few slides highlight some of the work done by Courtney Holden, which you can see her on the far left there. They're doing some analysis there with Emma, Liz, and Ashley on some fish contaminant samples there. And so this is work by Courtney, River Institute staff, and other partners to respond to community concerns about fish populations and contaminants in the region. So the Institute is ideally positioned in terms of geography and networks to rapidly mobilize and respond to community concerns. And we also work in partnership with other stakeholders, such as the MCA, to collect and disseminate environmental information to the public that might be of interest. And hopefully many of you have been to our speaker series presentations as well. That's a great platform for that too. So last year, the River Institute worked in partnership with the MCA to document and report on the distribution of dead eels along the Cornwall waterfront. And you can see in this, this is actually using some new techniques. We're using drones now to help document things from the sky. So in this case, in this image here, you actually see a lot of dead eels. The white kind of shapes there are the bodies of the eels. This is a new tool that's helping just to better inform the distribution of fish like this in the river. But a lot of boat work was also done. So we're preliminary work here, but this is leading to new research in 2023 for both the River Institute and the MCA. Cornwall and Messina, for many, many years, for over 100 years, were centers of industrial activity. And that was great for the economy and jobs and people making and earning a living. But it resulted in a lot of environmental contamination, unfortunately. And in the mid-1980s, the St. Lawrence River at Cornwall and Messina was designated as one of the 43 areas of concern around the Great Lakes. That's an area of concern is just an area that does not meet the objectives of the Canada-US Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement. So there's something that's been degraded about the environment. And that leads to restrictions in how people can use the environment and also impacts wildlife. So we call those types of restrictions beneficial use impairments, and they have different categories. And to address that, we create this remedial action plan. How are we going to fix those beneficial use impairments? And we have remedial action plan or RAP coordinators that are hired to help coordinate those efforts. So at the River Institute, we have Georgia Bach, and at the MCA, we have Brittany Bourdage as the current RAP coordinators for our area, and they do a lot of great work. And one of the fundamental reasons for the founding of the River Institute in 1994 was to create a River Institute, or a research institute that can undertake studies in environmental contamination. It's one of the reasons we exist. And we've been doing research ever since then. And over the past decades, we've done incredible amount of research. It's very, I think, inspiring to help inform on trends of contamination, and with a particular focus on legacy mercury contamination in the river. 5 years ago, we did a really big effort to document baseline conditions in the sediments along the Cornwall waterfront, as well as the levels of mercury contamination in fish. And this past year, in 2022, we did a 5-year follow-up to that, where we did a big effort in the fall. Two teams were out for many days in the cold fall weather to document those trends as well again. And that's directly helping to inform the Cornwall sediment strategy established in 2005, which functions under monitored natural recovery. So we leave the system alone, we see how it does over time. Hopefully it's recovering naturally as we go. This map here shows just the sampling sites that were undertaken for Young of the Year, Yellow Perch, and Round Gobies. And hopefully you can orient yourself a little bit on that map. The upper one shows the Longsuit Parkway, and then a little bit east of the Cornwall waterfront. And you can see the sites are sampled, reference sites upstream, so we can measure the progress of remediation along the Cornwall waterfront in relation to these reference sites. And an expanded view of that below, where you can see the sampling sites along the Cornwall waterfront. Huge effort there, over 102 netting events, and over 1,000 core drops to grab those samples in the fall. So thank you to Courtney Holden and Josh Filion for leading that work in the fall. It was a really big effort. And again, it's helping this really big, address this really big concern about recovery in the area. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank all the staff that contribute to field and lab research. We've just highlighted a few projects here. There's so many on the go all the time. It's just a really wonderful team working in a dynamic environment. Everybody's multitasking all the time, and I'm just grateful for all the long hours that people put out, and helping to generate these really unique data sets that are having real world impacts. So now I'd like to pass it over to Dr. Lee McGahee. And Lee will be sharing with you some exciting research that her and her team are making to develop ecosystem health indicators for the St. Lawrence River, and engaging communities about the huge efforts that are being made to develop progress on conservation activities. So we're going to switch it over to Lee.
Okay. It's nice to join you all remotely. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. Lee McGahee, Program Lead for Research and Community Engagement. So as part of the Community and Engagement Program, we have a number of projects, and we have an amazing team. Obviously, in a context like today, we can't share everything that we're doing. So I'm just going to share with you some highlights. So the Great River Report is an ecosystem health report on the Upper St. Lawrence River. The project is led in partnership with the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, and it has a number of pillars. So you can see from this slide, we have Indigenous knowledge component, we have a science component, and we also have a community engagement component, which includes the general public and then also some education materials that we develop. For the science part of the Great River Report, we have 35 ecological indicators. And ecological indicators are really a way of tracking the health of the system. And for this very first segment of the piece now, for research and community engagement, I want to hand it over to Dr. Marianne Perron, who is leading the science component of the Great River Report. And Marianne has completed the yellow perch indicator. Marianne has been with the River Institute for 3 years as a postdoctoral fellow, and very recently she's become a permanent employee as a research scientist. So Marianne, I'm going to hand over to you for the next slide on perch.
Thank you so much, Lee. So as she mentioned, online, that interaction with the community and the feedback we received, we have now completed the report. And basically, gill netting programs from the government have shown a decrease in perch population size from the 1970s to present. But what we found was that this is largely due to the nutrient concentrations in Lake Ontario and the Upper St. Lawrence River being decreased due to the nutrient abatement programs. So from the 1940s to the 1970s, the Upper St. Lawrence River experienced cultural eutrophication, which means that there was too many nutrients in the water. And these nutrients derived from land clearing, domestic sewer systems, as well as phosphate-based detergents. So this excess nutrients actually benefited yellow perch population size because it supported a lot of plants and a lot of benthic invertebrates, which provide food and shelter for the yellow perch. So once these nutrients decreased in the river, perch population size also decreased to levels that we've seen prior to this excess of nutrients that was put in between the 40s and the 1970s. So this indicator highlights the importance of looking up historical records. And once we went back prior to that excess nutrient period, we saw that yellow perch population size is actually quite similar now to what it was before that period. So this work is done in collaboration with Abraham Francis, MCA, community members, and data providers, and we've had lots of community interest, so we'd like to thank everyone. And speaking of nutrients, we have a new incredible scientist, Dr. Erin Smith, who has joined the Great River Report, and she's going to talk to you about the indicator she's working on, nutrients. So I'll just pass it over to her.
Perfect. Thanks, Marianne. So hi, everyone. I'm Erin. I joined the River Institute back in December. I'll just give you a little bit of background on myself. So I'm joining today from Oshawa, Ontario. I grew up in the next town over, Whitby, Ontario. And I did my bachelor degree at McMaster University in Hamilton. So it's kind of neat that there's a McMaster group, hopefully still there, so that's great. At McMaster, I did my degree in the integrated science program. And so with that, I really took away from it this kind of interdisciplinary lens of viewing research, and have tried to maintain that throughout the rest of my research. So after I graduated, I came back here, went to Ontario Tech University, or formerly UOIT, and did my PhD under the supervision of Dr. Andrea Kirkwood. And so I was able to do a kind of direct PhD program there. And my research focused on the Kawartha Lakes. So they're a group of lakes just about 20 minutes north of where I am, side of the GTA. And with that work, I was interested in nearshore nutrient dynamics, water quality, and I was also able to use a community science approach to my research. And so that really gave me a good appreciation of, connecting with local community to conduct environmental research. And so, I graduated back end of last summer and was lucky enough to get on at the River Institute, as I mentioned, back in December. And then since joining, I was able to work with the team members to create a MyTax application, which has extended my stay at the River Institute by a bit. So I am currently on a MyTax Accelerate grant, which takes me through to September. And then in September, I have a MyTax Elevate grant that starts, and that's a 2-year program. So I'll be sticking around for a little while. And so with my work at the River Institute, as Marianne mentioned, I'm looking at the nutrients indicator. So I've started a little bit of progress on that so far. And then I'm also going to be looking at the benthic macroinvertebrate diversity indicator and the invasive dracaenid mussels, so zebra and quagga mussels indicator. So I'm looking forward to that work. And thanks again. And I'll hand it back to Lee now.
Thanks so much, Erin and Marianne. So for the following few slides, I'd just like to highlight some of the ways of knowing through which we are connecting people with environmental science in the region. The Great River Report project is framed in the Handa Gallows, the Thanksgiving address. So it's a Haudenosaunee practice where the sharing of these words acknowledges the roles and responsibilities of all levels of creation and serves to bring our minds together as one, which of course we had Abram Francis do for us today, which is always fantastic. So as part of the Great River project, we commissioned a local artist, Victoria Ransom, to create 16 unique drawings that reflect the levels of the Thanksgiving address. And in those drawings, she incorporated motifs from the 35 ecological indicators that we have. So it's book together with some of the meaning behind the illustrations and set with Stephanie Hildebrand's beautiful designs. We have a book that we've created now that's available to the public. We also have collaborated with another artist, Christine Fitzgerald, and Christine has been collaborating with the River Institute for 2 years now and has made various artworks related to the river. But the one that you see right here is called Blue Impressions, and it's made of individual cyanotypes. So those are artworks where you take some paper that's been treated with chemicals, you leave it out in the sun with objects on top of it. Where the objects are lying, you get wherever the shadow is, you get white. Where the sun exposure occurs, you get the blue color. You rinse this off after a short amount of time. So Christine was great in that she was willing to run a workshop at the River Institute last year in the summer, and we had 65 members of the community and many of our partners come and join us for that day. And this is the resulting artwork that you can see here. And the artwork has been displayed already in Ottawa and also in Vancouver, and there are plans to have the artwork displayed locally in Cornwall on a more permanent basis. So the next slide, I'd like to mention a relatively new initiative, which is the River Strategy, and it's been gaining quite a bit of a momentum. So through all the work that the River Institute does with all of the partners, we have many ties up and down the St. Lawrence River, and we're working on a framework for collective impact. So by creating a network where community groups, agencies, organizations, community members, so individuals as well, can all come together around a common goal of a future beautiful and healthy St. Lawrence River. And so this initiative, like so many of the projects at the River Institute, is led in partnership with the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, and it's still in its formative stages. So Emily DeRochi is the River Strategy Coordinator, and there've been a series of meetings that have happened over the last year. The most recent one, we had 77 people engage with this project. So it demonstrates a real need. You know, there's lots of people that understand working in silos and that we need to have a hub around which we can gather. So we're looking forward to seeing what happens with the River Strategy. We also, of course, every year, so the next slide, we host a River Symposium. The theme for the River Symposium in 2022 was Ways of Knowing, an excellent turnout event, which was delivered one person and one day online. It covered a wide array of topics, and we're really grateful, particularly to all our partners who helped to make this particular event such a success. This year coming, we'll be having the 30th anniversary of the symposium, which is a great run for the River Institute. Excuse me. So lastly, I'd just like to mention another element of the Great River Report, and that is the development of our education material. And Emily DeRochi is leading this as well. So she is both an environmental scientist as well as a teacher, and she's been developing a Changemaker series, which highlights local people from the community who are making an impact for a better environment. And these materials are aligned to the school curriculum for high school students, and already 2 are completed and available online. And this this is contributing, of course, to more of our outreach as part of the Great River Report, and will also feed into the education, the general education department at the River Institute. So that's a really good segue for me to hand over now to Brian Hickey. Brian is the program lead for research and education at the River Institute, and he will talk about the work that's happening with his team. Thank you.
So while we're switching slides, I just want to point out, because it might not be obvious, especially to anyone joining on Facebook Live, that some of the people we just heard from are scattered all over the globe. Lee was speaking to us from South Africa, Marianne from near North Bay, and Aaron from somewhere in the GTA, I think. And there weren't many upsides to COVID, but one of them was that we learned how to work with people remotely. And so now we're able to work with the people we want to work with and need to work with, and where they happen to be is no longer a barrier. We have to deal with some minor glitches, but the two really calm people, Emma and Zach to my right, didn't seem the least bit flustered, and they got us back on track. So before I talk about education and learning together, I just want to mention that I work with a really great team, Christina Charat, Lexi Harquell, and Alana Ackermans. And we've just recently added Mel Ayat to the team, and you'll be hearing and seeing more of her in next year's annual general meeting presentation, I'm sure. But also, education is not just the work of our crew. Much of the work that Matt and Lee referred to, the Changemaker series, Ways of Knowing, all of that is education. So education is really intertwined and interwoven through all of the work the River Institute does, and that's one of the things that makes the River Institute unique. The other thing that makes the River Institute unique, I think, is the way we approach education. Sadly, we spend a lot of time in our educational systems discouraging people who like science from doing science. We tell them it's too dangerous, you're going to get dirty, you can't do this, don't touch the bug, it's going to bite you, get out of the mud. Your mother's going to be upset, or your father's going to be upset if he has to wash all your clothes. And so we spend a lot of time discouraging young students who are all naturally curious about the natural world. We discourage them, and then eventually they get to university and we discourage them more because they're in classes with hundreds of people and they're told, no, you still can't do hands-on science yet. So what we do at the River Institute is we try to avoid these canned experiments where you know what's going to happen ahead of time, because that's not what science is to scientists, and that's not what excites me or Lee or Marianne and all the other people you heard from or heard about. Because science is about answering questions we don't know answers to, and it's about exploring the natural world, whether it's the biological world or the world of chemistry or physical science. So the image you see here are a couple of young students, and whenever possible, we involve these students in real projects in real science. When we can't involve them in real science, we try to mimic real science as closely as possible. And these students here are using model bats that were made by Lexi, one of our crew. They're model bats, but they're realistic bats. They have the same measurements, the same mass of actual bats. And these students are going through the same procedure I go through each night in the summer when my crew and I catch live bats as part of some research you'll hear about later. So that's what really sets our education approach apart from others. Whenever we can, we're doing real science. And also, equally importantly, students get to interact with actual scientists and see what a scientist really does. So science is taught by science. Myself and all of the colleagues at the River Institute from time to time are recruited to help us. In terms of metrics, we reach over 3,000 students in our regular workshops, and that's sometimes students coming to the River Institute. It's sometimes our scientists and assistants going into their schools. It's sometimes online activities as well. So we've tried to retain the best of the online stuff that we developed during the pandemic as we have now transitioned back into face-to-face. Even during the height of the pandemic, we managed to do face-to-face things with students and connect students and scientists rather than just develop an online thing that was, you click and you get some videos, you get some animations. We actually used cameras, connected our microscopes to cameras, and we maintained that interaction between our scientists and the students we were teaching, because I think those personal connections are probably the most important part of education. Education too often becomes about meeting curriculum deliverables, but really education is about connections between teachers and learners, and that's what I think we do best, and that's what we tried to maintain even when we had to move online. We do family workshops, including workshops here each summer. We have a traveling water festival, which we just tested at a new location, Maitland Towers, and Maitland Tower site, from all I've heard, was a spectacular venue for that. So we're looking forward to going back again next year. We have a number of special programs, including kids camps, young kids camps, where we do lots of crafts and catching bugs and other things. And then our older junior scientist camp, where even at 12 to 15-year-old age ranges, we get students involved in our actual research projects, and we sometimes rely on people like Matt and Courtney, who you've heard about, to take small groups of young children out to teach them what science actually is about. I'm a research scientist as well as the education program leader, and unlike most of my colleagues, most of my work is terrestrial, looking at mercury in bats, and also trying to conserve bat populations. I'm sure most of you have heard about a fungus called white nose fungus or white nose syndrome that has decimated bat populations. And so in the last decade or so, most of my work has been kind of two-pronged. First, trying to help the recovery of these bats that have been decimated, declined by more than 90%. And the other aspect has been to look at mercury in bats. Many years ago, I thought, I'm doing all this work on mercury in fish, but I did my PhD working on bats, and I'd really like to integrate bats into my research program. Be interesting to see what mercury concentrations are like in bats. And for those who don't know about mercury, mercury increases as you move up long food chains, but bats don't feed atop long food chains. They feed atop very short food chains. So we don't really expect large concentrations, high concentrations of mercury in bats. So much to my surprise, and much to the surprise of many of my colleagues, when I compared bats to animals that feed atop much higher food chains, bats had about somewhere between 100 and 1,000 times more mercury than what you'd expect based on where they are in the food web. And so that has led to a number of studies involving some graduate students. The one in the picture here is Sarah Greenwood. Sarah's taking over where Bailey Bedard, who you might have heard about last year, left off. So Bailey was asking the question, do bats have some different, more efficient mechanism for dealing with high concentrations of mercury? The concentrations of mercury in bats, if they were in most mammals, would be causing some detrimental and easily observable effects. So she thought maybe they have some unique set of genes that help detoxify mercury. So she looked at that. Turns out they have the same kind of genetic responses as most other mammals. So not the answer. But while doing that, she found out yet another puzzle, or discovered another puzzle. Mercury is associated with aquatic environments. It turns out the most aquatic species of bats have the lowest mercury concentrations among bats, and the highest concentrations are in terrestrial bats. So it seems that when we look at mercury, everything we've learned from other animals seems to be reversed in bats, and we're still trying to find out why. Sarah Greenwood, the student in this picture, she's asking the question, are there some detrimental effects that we're missing? Bats are loaded with mercury, but they seem to be doing fine, or at least mercury doesn't seem to be the reason why they're dying. And so maybe we're not looking closely enough, or maybe bats have a really high tolerance for mercury in their bodies. And so what Sarah's been doing is measuring mercury and also stress hormones like cortisol to see whether there's any subtle signs that bats are being stressed by their high mercury concentrations. So I'll just sum up by saying one of the things we do not only in the education department, but in the River Institute as a whole, is we try to find and expose young people to a variety of pathways to science. Through our environmental technician program that we deliver in collaboration with the college, we have opportunities for people who are mid-career, doing career switches. We try to expose young people to science early on before they get discouraged by the regular education system. And many of those people you saw in the photos, and many of the people in this photo here are people who we've exposed to science in different ways, and many of them are currently working at the River Institute as a consequence. I'll turn it over next to Christina, who you all know, I'm sure, by now, but Christina is going to talk about sustainability and capacity at the River Institute.
All right, I'll keep this short because I know we have gone on longer maybe than we thought we would, but it's always interesting to hear what's happening at the River Institute, and I think I'm just going to hold this because it won't clip on. And also, I'm also very proud to be part of the River Institute for 29 years. So it's my 29th annual general meeting. And again, just woohoo! Now, from the very beginning, for those students that are here with us today, it's very inspiring to work for a nonprofit organization as you work for a cause, and very valuable. As you can see from all the presentations and the people that are working for us, we are now a world-class organization. And I think we've talked about this in 29 years ago, saying, how can we build this? And here we are today. So really proud. And also like talking about sustainability. I remember writing letters. Thank you for supporting us for the sustainability and vitality of the River Institute. And here we are 29 years later. However, it's still a lot of work to maintain our organization and keep it sustainable, and capacity is where it's at. And I'd like to mention next that part of our budget process, so everybody, for those of you who don't know, the River Institute has no core government funding. So there's nobody giving us millions of dollars every year to sustain us. We have to go out and find these funding through applications, so through private foundations, organizations, donors, fee for service, you name it, we go after it, and it's a lot of work that's behind the scenes. And here we are with Pam Maloney on the left, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, who is now retired. So we want a big thank you to Pam, and to fill her big shoes is Elsie Lewison, Dr. Elsie Lewison, who has joined our team last year, so part of our 22 team, and she is now helping with the funding applications and so on. So as you can tell, from the audit report, we had a $2 million. We've reached the $2 million. I look back, I think it was 2016 or 15, we were at $1 million. So it took that many years to grow another $1 million. And with COVID, we managed to have success. So it didn't discourage us. We plowed through, and here we are just thriving. So yeah, so thanks to Pam and Elsie for joining. And the next slide. All right, so just quickly, our pie charts for our revenues. And we made a small surplus of $4,200 this year, an operating surplus, so we're always glad to be in the black. And just to show you where our funding comes from, I won't go into detail because you can get this in our annual report, which breaks down a little bit more of the financial details there. And with all of that, the major part of our organization and its sustainability is thanking our donors, our sponsors, and the people that support us, our community. So again, thank you so much to everybody for just being there. It's, like I said, that's what it takes to be part of the organization. River Champions as well as another venue to give support. So you're welcome to join our River Champions donation circle if you'd like. And we have one more exciting upcoming event this year. Since fundraising has been on hold for the last 3 years, we are finally now back on track, and we have an event June 22nd, which you'll all hear about soon because the tickets are ready, called Making Waves. It's in our backyard. It's going to be a backyard party, and I hope a majority of you can attend and participate, and the tickets are on sale at Eventbrite, which I will share after the AGM through an email to everybody to hope that you participate. So thank you so much, and I'm just going to let it back to Jeff for a final thank you. And
You stay there, Chris.
okay, sure.
If the 2 mics. Just obviously continuity is part of the secret, and so Chris's contribution has been really key to the Institute and all that behind the scene work and her team that helps us together. So if we go to the next slide, just the last couple of slides, just to sort of, here's our metrics, here's the numbers that kind of help summarize the year and how we're obviously working with within our theory of change to sort of get those numbers out and difference over the 5,000 plus students, the research projects, the presentations. Going back to the research projects, we were thinking 8 months in the field. Obviously, that's great, but 12 months is the objective. So, but it's just still we're pretty active, and then just the number of team members. So really proud to be able to summarize all of that and see it all roll up into those numbers. And the last slide is just that we have been fortunate to receive some recent recognition. First off, at the top is the Nature Inspiration Award finalists. We were finalists through the River Report, was recognized by the Canadian Museum of Nature, a national award system for the work that River Report is doing, as you could tell, for Lee, and she introduced how special that is. And then just last week, in fact, the Great Lakes research community, the IAGLR, International Association of Great Lakes Research, awarded the River Institute the Jack Valentine Award. And Jack was known as Johnny Biosphere, and for his work in terms of public outreach and informing public policy about science. So we're very happy to receive that. Next slide. And just to thank the staff for all of their work, for all their contributions, and to know that both Chris and I and Brian and all of our senior members are so proud of all the work that you guys do. And thank you so much for your efforts, dedication, and contributions. And that finishes up our presentation. So thank you.
All right, so we have a couple of minutes. Lunches are here, but it's a box lunch. And just to remind everybody, the lunch, you please leave the containers behind because they're recyclable. They're reusable. So we went that route, so we didn't waste anything this year. And the lunch is all set up outside now through the hallway. So whenever we're finished with questions, I'm sure everybody's starving, and we can do that. So anybody have any quick questions or anything that they'd like to add? Or, Abe, would you like to? Oh, did you have a question? Nope. I know we're going to do the close, but just make sure anybody has any questions. No? Great. That means we answered all your questions in our presentation, and we fulfilled our objectives for 2022, and we'll have some exciting 2023 news next year, for sure.
All right. So, wow, what an amazing year for the River Institute, and just want to celebrate such a great team that is clearly doing such impactful work along the St. Lawrence, Argania de Luana. And so now I will close this meeting and we can all be released back to our lives. So, Gyonkyoqua Sodohusios Kaligaliwesa, Danchidu Polado ne Sugaya Dizo Negadi o Handakaliwatekwa, Egono Hetsto, Tonio Tohok Niguat Nigula, Tau. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne ungwet sua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne yake ni staha hunja. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne onaga sua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne yake ni staha hunja. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne gaja sua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne orla sua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne ahunde sua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne anunkwa sua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne gayan tusala. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne gahi sua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne ojino asua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne gondilio. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne ugwele sua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne ojida agua. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne la diwelas. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne gaeli na goalage. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne sungwa jia yoke neko gwalakwa. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne asuta neka galakwa. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne ajina gwalunyo. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne gaeli ni ngwedege. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Agwego aska de dawa wet nuni ne ngwa ni gula dano de tano lados ne sungwa dizo. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. And then for the closing. Ona wadeli wan holdo. Nua wanizalade doga oteno saingo ningulha. Ize gine izawada sundelo egadi. Tony o tok ni ngwa ni gula to. Yawa.